Good morning, you gorgeous bastards. I hope you're all keeping well. Pardon me. On this kind of gothic-y Saturday. Nice kind of ethereal vibe. Foggy with the leafless trees. Kind of like mystified and diffused by the light. I like it. And I hope you're all keeping well. Life's good to you. And big shout out first of all to the godmother of punk herself, Nina Hagen. That's why I'm using her as the thumbnail for this video. Nina Hagen has volunteered actually, to become a spokesperson and a patron for the detransitioning organization that helps people who were groomed by psychiatrists, school teachers and Munchausen by proxy parents and politicians into changing their genders to returning back to being human beings again. Now, this is it. I mean, like punk, you'll have like lunatics saying, that's not real punk. No, that is real punk. Punk was always against the establishment. The establishment, like in Ireland this week, they had politicians from the Labour Party basically saying, castrate your children, isn't it great? And having a little press conference, and just pure psychotic. And they're surrounded by a bunch of like Munchausen by proxy mothers. So to be against the establishment is punk rock. The establishment is pro-trans, if an adult wants to become trans, that's their own business. I'm talking about like the whole thing of transitioning children and stuff like that against their will, grooming. Which is really a form of paedophilia. All these politicians that you see on TV who are pro-trans and talk about transgenders in schools and stuff, they're just paedophiles. That's all they are. They're paedophiles with a sexual organ castration fetish. Always remember that when it comes to elections, if you're still stupid enough to vote. Anyway, so well done, Nina Hagen. Well bloody done. And so there you go. Two of the original punks, her and John Lydon, they're against the establishment, and all the lefties are all like, oh, but that's not real punk. No, it is. That's real punk. No. I would have been back in the day, they would have been the other side. Why? Because that was before the left became progressive and then woke. And what happened is that basically the left became malignant, cancerous, and it metastasized into woke. It pushed everyone who was in the centre over to the right, which they never were. I'm still a liberal. I'm still a centrist, and more or less. And like all cults do. And so that's what happened. So that's why proper punks like Nina Hagen and proper punks like John Lydon are against the establishment. And the establishment is left-wing, progressive, woke politics. You're not the resistance. You are the mainstream. So I'll have a sip of Dr. Pepper for you later on. It's Saturday, I'm allowed one Dr. Pepper. So, speaking of cults, I was just thinking, and cancel culture, I was just thinking yesterday how similar cancel culture is to fair game within Scientology. It's almost identical. Within Scientology, if you're an ex-Scientologist and you blow the whistle, or they're afraid you're going to blow the whistle, or something like that, instead of, do you know the way they call you an SP, a suppressed person? But that's the same thing with the left. They will call you a fascist or a far-righter. It's weird how similar Scientology and modern progressive politics is. And let me explain it to you. So, if you fall out of their favour, they will do things like they will dox you, can't try to show up at your business, try to get you fired, try to get your boss to fire you, try to destroy you in every way, follow you around, harass you. Exactly what these wokies do. These blue-haired freaks and other an activist is someone who can't take control of their own lives, so they want to bully other people, but into compliance, into their compliance. But everyone has to adjust their value system for one lunatic who can't control their own existence. So there you, and it's interesting, isn't it? So how similar Scientology is to in terms of like, is to modern Scientology under Savage and all those people, is to cancel culture. And we all know all cults, literally all of them go back, well, they go back to the CIA and the intelligence services. The CIA and the French and the British intelligence services create, massage and use cults. Big thing in France. UFO cults, common contact, common doomsday cults, alien contactee cults, all this kind of stuff to formulate human behavioral models. And so an MK Ultra played a huge part in it. The explosion of cults happened after the MK Ultra program. So it's obvious, like, now, Scientology is a weird one because something happened to L. Ron Hubbard in the early days. Like, at the time, like, when he was hanging out with Jack Parsons, he was a completely different personality than he became later on. Almost as if the CIA had murdered him or replaced him. And he'd done some phenomenal work that ended up in the Monroe Institute on like The Secret Life of Plants and stuff like that. The Dianetics is a pretty interesting read. That was before Scientology really began. So the L. Ron Hubbard, who was a womanizer, ran off with Jack Parsons' wife as an occultist, did the Babylon working in the Mojave Desert with Jack Parsons, which worked. Fucks off down to the Panama Canal with Jack Parsons' girlfriend, former sister-in-law, and then becomes writes Dianetics, becomes a multi-millionaire, moves to Ireland in the 1950s for some weird reason, and goes back to America and becomes a completely different person, almost like he was killed or replaced. So, and that's probably when the CIA took control of Scientology. So it's pretty obvious now that all these people are going around wanting to cancel people, dox people, all these lefties with the purple hair. They're all basically creations of the CIA's MK Ultra program, which was kind of weaponized within cults, within Flying Saucer and other kind of cults. Because the two things are identical: the doxing, the fair. They're all filled with people who are full of jealousies and insecurities and that kind of thing, and they will call in their friends or family to help them with the doxing or the fair game. Isn't it? And entire families are now raised woke in the same way entire families are raised Scientologists. Like, and these woke families, the child, before it can say mama, dada, is going he, she, them, they. So, and they're already putting them on hormone blockers. It's fucking interesting. It's really interesting when you start looking at it that way. How much of this reality is, a construct of the intelligence services, the CIA and so on. I wrote an article yesterday. It's one of the best articles I think I've ever written on Substack about how we have to detach ourselves from the Levant, from the Levantine lands, in order to save the West. So, like organized religion being the first big cult. I'm not talking about people who are just basically spiritual or pray to their God or whatever. And a big part of the cult, the religious cult, is taking the divine and overcomplicating it. Right? Okay. I look out there, I see a very sort of ethereal, romantic scene of trees in the mist. I say, isn't it amazing how nature seems to almost be an artist? Well, it is an artist, and how it makes things pleasing to the eyes, and it provides us with everything, and all the animals with everything, and it's endlessly beautiful and wonderful. No, I'm not talking about Gnostics; they all think they live in a prison, but So, and then you say, then the conclusion you say to you, it's too amazing, especially if you study science in a proper way, like a natural philosopher, and you're not studying science in order to kill like fucking God. And you go to yourself, there has to be a spiritual dimension behind this, an intelligence. And that would be like the deists of the founding fathers of America are pagans. You know, there's not a big stretch between Aristotle and Benjamin Franklin, between Plato and Thomas Jefferson. And so, you know, that's the conclusion you come to, right? Now, but that's all you need. Like, that's what I love about the deists, the American founding fathers and the deists. There is a spiritual dimension to the universe, and that's enough, you know. You don't have to then invent an entire ecclesiastical or canon or enormous theological philosophy around any of it. You just have to accept it exists. Let's go to paganism. Now, paganism would have been paganism in the past. They didn't go around like Abrahamics going, "Oh, Thor bless us," or "Oh, Odin bless us," or "Oh, Jupiter do this," or plays the Mars. They didn't do that. They just knew those gods were there. So there was almost a reductionist quality. I'm going to lead this thing. Reductionism, paganism, right? That's the thing I'm going to come down to. Well, actually, that was a bad word because that's to do with science. Like, the sigilization of paganism. The stripping down of paganism to its basic form. So, for instance, you don't spend your time out in the woods, in the groves, celebrating the gods. Why? Because those groves belong to them. If you encroach upon them and you get a feeling you shouldn't be here, you leave, okay? You are polite. You're in someone's home. It may be some kind of entity, a fairy, whatever. It may be a god. You leave, okay? You're in someone's home. You be respectful. So, even Orthodox Jews are smart enough to not call Jehovah by its name. The Tetragrammaton, they'll use codes or letters. Because when you evoke the name of a god out loud, it's an order, isn't it? And who are mortals to order around gods? We can't even order around angels. That's why all these angel freaks that, they're all these crazy women who are onto angel stuff, they all go mad because they're telling the angels, they're mortals telling the angels what to do. No, a mortal can't tell an angel or a higher spiritual being, I'll call it, or a god what to do. So when you're announcing something, when you have something that you need in your life done and you implore a god by their name out loud, "Please, such and such, save me," it's not a good idea because that can be interpreted as an order. A mortal giving an order to a god. This is why they said the gods. They were rarely specific. The gods, okay? Or they had a god that was specific to a kind of a thing, like a group or a demographic. For instance, the working class of Rome had a great affinity for the goddess Artemis, Diana. The people who worked in the countryside, it was Pan or Apollo. They had a love and affection for Apollo that would be very similar to a love and affection for Jesus. They would talk about how beautiful, but they wouldn't go around saying Apollo do this, Apollo do that. You went to specific places and were inquired upon for oracles and so on. People who were chosen by the gods, who were given charisma, might be able to help, but it wasn't up to you to make a request from a god. You do not interfere in the world of the gods. That's not your job. That would be like an insect telling you how to live. You wouldn't do it. So there's and you had craftsmen. Like, we know that the boatmen and the craftsmen of Paris venerated Vulcan, the Roman god of volcanoes and metallurgy and in craftsmanship. And that would have happened everywhere. It would have been the Gobinsera in Ireland, or the Gobinu. It would have been, all kinds of things, all over the pagan world. But they would not. It would have been a very casual association, because anything other than that would have been seen as ordering the gods around. Now, I'll even go one step further. And I'm not the first one to come up with this. But the way in magic when you create a sigil, the purpose of the sigil is to reduce it to its most minimal form. So you can create a pure stream of energy. So if you start with like a sentence, You take out the vowels, you take out the repeating consonants, then you create a graphic based upon that. It works the best if you reduce the graphical complexity of the sigil down to its most basic form. So if you have like say overlapping letters that might have similar, elements, like the letter or would have a straight line on the back of the or, and the letter I is a straight line. So you combine that and the I and the or into two, or a B, an or and a B. A B here, and, I'm trying to think of another, a T on top. You constantly do reductionism until you've got the most basic sigil and node points you can actually get, because you're reducing it down to a pure stream of energy. Well, that comes from paganism. I think the most effective form of paganism is not to build temples to Apollo and all this kind of thing. 9 noble virtues. That's just the 10 commandments for Lutherans and ex-Lutherans who can't give up the Abrahamic thing, and all kinds of rules. No, you just accept it as it is, and then you live the mortal life. So even the use of names, like you have the pagan god. One of the pagan gods I venerate is Lucifer. Okay, Now, when I say venerate, I mean I don't actually go around praising him as so much. I will see the morning star or the evening star, and I will concentrate and fix silently upon it, and petition. No, I'm not saying do this for me or do that for me. I would basically thank Lucifer for helping guide me in my life. I did the same with his associated god, Lu, the Irish god Lu, okay, is also a god of light, just like as Lucifer is. Lucifer is the Roman god of the morning star. Now, you will see there is no canon, there's no kind of like canon or sort of like, what's the word I would use, complexity associated with the Roman god Lucifer. In the same way you might get with other gods like Lucifer, because it was just, his rising in the morning as the morning star and his appearing in the evening as the evening star. 2 pivotal points in our psychological development, as we have a shift in psychology as the sun is going down, and a shift in psychology as the sun is going up. And Lucifer, Venus, the morning star and the evening star, is there during both of it. So we don't have to venerate. We can say Ave Lucifer and long live the horned gods. That's something I just made up, mainly to piss off people who slag on me off for being a pagan. But that, so you can say Ave. You can say Ave Lucifer. You could say Yo Pan. You see, they're single syllable words. Well, Ave's too. They're short of Ave. Yo. I-O. They're not complex fucking catechisms and creeds and salutations and acts of contrition. They're very simple. It's acknowledging the existence of the old gods and their place in nature is the pagan way of doing it. Just dealing with the fact there's a supernatural intelligence in the universe and then doing science on this earth is how the deists do it. It's also how the Greek and Roman classicals did it. And also how science would have been done by things like ardensmiths and, when they were, say a Scandinavian pagan metalworker would be making a plough blade or making a part for nails for a ship. He would say, Hail Thor. This kind of thing. But it wouldn't be a big, long thing. It wouldn't be a massive, the minimum thing, almost like an acknowledgement. An acknowledgement is enough. So if you have to go to it, this is why cults like Scientology have books and books and books on how to be a Scientologist. All these modules. That's how you know you're in a cult, when there's books and books and books of this shit. And you know you're not in a cult when it's just basically a small veneration thing. A sort of simple thing. And that includes Christianity. That's why I like the folk Catholic thing, or just a basic, like the old-fashioned, the Anglicanism, the original Anglicanism, the Church of England. You know, just basically, God exists. I'm glad he exists. Thank you. And that's enough. You know, the Christians who say, whenever I walked into the room, I felt that Jesus was with me. That's enough. That's it. That's exactly that's a very pagan mindset. When I enter into a situation, I know that Morrigan is with me in a certain situation. I know Pan is with me in a certain situation. I know Thor is with me in a certain situation. And even the reduction can be brought down to the names, right? Now, I said Lucifer and Lamphada are, you know, they're similar archetypes, right? You can reduce that down to the Indo-European term for them both, which is Luke, which means a flash of light. But you could even reduce it down again to Lu. And there's more. What you're doing, you're like the sigil, reducing the consonants, removing the vowels, and overlapping the graphical elements. It's instead of Lucifer or Lamphada, it's Lu. Instead of Morrigan, it's Mo, which is very close to Maher, Ma. All over the world, the word for mother, Mary. In fact, speaking of Mary, the most common name in Ireland in the 19th century, up until about just after the famine, well, up to the 1880s, was Mo for a girl. And there was always an assumption that Mo stood for Mary. And when they would go to America or Ellis Island, they'd say, what was your name? Mo. And they'd write down, so you're Mary. Okay. But it was Mo. What was Mo from? Well, University College Dublin in the 1970s discovered that Mo was short for Morrigan. A reduction. It also gives you power in a world where complexity is what hangs you. You see, one of the reasons that the control grid, the psychopathic control grid, enforces complexity upon us is because it makes us easier to control. And that can, like, just imagine you live in a log cabin where maybe your diet consists of you get some pork, you get like a side of pork once a week, bacon once a week from the shops, a couple of pints of milk and some butter and a loaf of bread. And that's your entire purchase from that shop, right? How more free and away from the man, the psychopathic control grid you are, than if you have, you know, all kinds of credit cards, shop cards, online purchases, a vast commercial retail lifestyle. You're a prisoner. They have so much control over you. That's why they're taking away cash. Cash is a reduction of the financial monetary system down to paper and coin. And those are gone. Fiat money system, it doesn't matter. It still has power. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So when the Christians talk about 666, they don't want to talk about. They talk about the digital ID being the mark of the beast. They're absolutely right, because it's tied into the banking thing. They're absolutely right about that. Even though they got their theology wrong, they actually got that bit right. So, yeah. So, you know, there's a lot to be said for paring down. Why do you think I always use the term attenuating? So, in terms of your spiritual life, you will find attenuation is much. You look at crazy religions like Orthodox Judaism. There's prayers for taking a shit. Seriously, and for wiping your arse. The Talmud is unbelievable, the fucking shit that's in it. You know, there's like literally a ritual for everything. Catholicism has that as well. You know, I'm talking about modern Catholicism, it has all that crap as well. Is it harmless? I don't know if it's harmless. You know, it's one thing to say, I totally get, saying a blessing before you eat. No problem with that. It's like saying thank the gods for this bounty that they have given us to this earth. Same thing as like we thank the Lord for this food. All comes from the same kind of thing. Good idea, because your food and your drink then has a positive energy poured into it. But to, you see, did you ever see the Passover Seder that the Jews have? Now, they say it's basically a fucking epic. Now, it's nothing wrong with keeping your tradition and everything, but it's a bit too much. Everything is a bit too much. Once a spiritual force becomes too much, it's not in control of itself anymore, and it's also entering into the world of the profane. The gods don't want you to be full of shit. They just want you to know that there's only one thing a god wants from you. Two things. For you to know that God exists, and for you to know that that God is powerful, because you're immortal and they aren't. And if you can apply that to every aspect of life, your interactions with people, you find that your life is a lot better. You find that you're attenuating, you're sigilizing your consciousness. You're attenuating your personality. You're stripping down. A lot of people say to me, in fact, the lady said it to me last night, what makes me different in this alternative scene is because this is how I roll. Most of the time, I do like big productions too, but like people say to me, you just sit there with a phone and you yap. You don't have an act, because this is exactly how I am in real life. This what you see is what you get. And this infuriates a lot of people who have a persona. A lot of people in the internal scene, they have a persona. They like to use lots of words. They like to have bookshelves behind with books on them to imply that they're highly intelligent, And they like to talk this, and they have their little script prepared before they go online. And then they see me coming on, with the arse hanging out of my fucking trousers and my hair blowing in the wind. And then I can just lay off a whole load of thing and then say, right, I'm out of here, see you, goodbye. And that's that. And it pisses them off. It pisses them off. A lot of jealousy that I've got over the years is simply the fact that I ain't full of shit. And I'm just base, what you see is what you get. And this is it. This is all you're going to ever get from me. Because why? Because you attenuate down. Why? Because the truth is simple. You can always tell a smear campaign when it gets convoluted. Something is either right or it's either wrong, and it's very easy to prove it one way or the other. Convolution is the stock and trade of the psychopath, the narcissist, the borderline, the bullshitter, and the deceiver. Okay? The truth is clear. It's a pure stream of energy. It doesn't require bells, whistles, and floweriness, and a wall of books behind you, and a million fucking sob stories made up and lies. It doesn't. It's like Bobby Fleckman said in Spinal Tap: money talks and bullshit walks.